be part of a community. If you never show up, you never attend venture cafes, you never network, you never meet other people, you're never going to grow. That person just in their basement working hard is great, and they might have traction and success, but if they do, it's because they're leveraging past relationships. If you don't have those relationships or you need to make new ones, you've got to be out in the community doing that.
This is where it all begins, so say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where they die. This is where we come to win, we come to fly. This is where we make our dreams come to life. Welcome to Innovation City.
Welcome to Innovation City, a podcast featuring the innovators, disruptors, and creators who are making things happen today. My name is Michael T. Johnson, and I'm here with my co-host Tyler Kelly. We are in St. Louis, Missouri tonight, so we're at Venture Cafe St. Louis. And Venture Cafe is the largest gathering of entrepreneurs, innovators, anywhere in the world. So if you're near a Venture Cafe on a Thursday night, one of the cities around the world that they're at, you're going to want to visit. So tonight we're very excited because we have Megan McKissen with us. So Megan's involved in the startup scene as well. So we're excited to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome. So Megan is the director at OPO Startups, which is an incubator focused on technology and design startups in St. Charles, Missouri. And she's also just started a company called Clustered, which works with communities to create inclusive startup scenes and, most importantly, homegrown economic clusters that create high-paying jobs and attract high-growth companies.
Exactly.
Welcome to the show, Megan.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So the first question is like this idea of clustered and like St. Charles and like how that all came about.
So I have been the director of OPO Startups for 3 years. Love it, passionate about it, and I really saw over the course of my time, I'm currently there, the impact of just the suburban element, honestly, which doesn't sound chic or flamboyant, but it's kind of a prime entrepreneur. Kauffman Foundation has done a ton of research about what kind of is an ideal age. It's usually 39 to 42. They're leveraging prior corporate experience. They're well educated. There's often a 2-income household to kind of weather the startup phase. And where do those people predominantly live? You know, either they're already living urbanly, or they're raising a family suburbanly, or in even outlying areas like St. Charles, which you're an exurb of the St. Louis metropolitan area. So, having seen that and just seeing, we're kind of like, I feel like the unsung part of the ecosystem in St. Louis. We're out in the boonies to a lot of people, even though we're on like a main street riverfront. But we have numerous Inc. 5000 companies. We had one company raised $8 million alone this year. I just had another company close a $5 million Series A round. I mean, we have a lot going on, but it's kind of that unsung, I'm doing my thing, I'm paying my bills, I'm moving forward in life. And I think there's a lot of potential, even for someone like me. There's like the heartland innovation that's happening, and you think about Pittsburgh and St. Louis and Kansas City and these very hip places and the revitalization of Detroit. I have 3 kids. I'm not going to live in downtown Pittsburgh. I'm not going to, downtown St. Louis was never an option for me when I relocated here. I have 3 children. I live in a suburban community where all my kids can walk to school, and it's a great environment. So I think we get, these types of areas get just kind of ignored, honestly, in the startup scene. That it's not, oftentimes they have a lot of the resources that are being offered at, like legal and accounting, they know what they're doing. So it's just kind of people focused. And that was really kind of my inspiration in seeing, I would like to see a cluster type OPO environment in every happening suburb across America that you've, so that's where I came from.
So for those people that are listening outside the St. Louis area, tell us about St. Charles.
So St. Charles was a distinct community from St. Louis. It was a Creole community across the Missouri River. And St. Louis kind of grew into St. Charles. So it has a distinct identity in addition to the separation of the rivers. There's been a lot of friction there between the cities over periods of time, lots of historic reasons in addition to the white flight after the civil rights movement. It's very politically different than St. Louis. There's a lot of differences just between the two communities. Having said that, though, I'm a transplant. A lot of my membership is a transplant. And if you, for whatever reason, move to St. Louis, it's a great place to raise a family, like I said. And I used to live in Phoenix for 10 years. And my house in St. Charles, Missouri, to the Arch of St. Louis is shorter than my commute was in Phoenix, significantly. And I had a good commute there. So these distinctions we have are very unique to St. Louis, I feel, or older cities in general. But
Yeah, we kind of have that thing going on that happens in a lot of Midwest cities where if it's more than 10 minutes, it's way out there and I don't want to go there.
Yes, very, very unique. Yeah, and to be fair, I've fallen into that trap. I live 2 miles from my office, and I'm like, if I have to stop at the stop sign and not roll through, I'm pretty upset about the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me, how did you, I mean, obviously you're doing OPO startups. Mm-hmm. You're also doing clustered. So what's the relationship there, and did one kind of feed into your desire for the other?
Absolutely. I had such a great experience at OPO startups, but just with kind of some life transitions, I wanted to be able to expand my footprint and grow beyond it, and I didn't want to leave OPO. So right now I'm given an opportunity to get to stay at a place that I love and I feel like is my fourth child, and get to see it continue to grow and come to its fruition, in addition to seeing that impact in other places. And what's good for clustered is good for OPO. Is I go around preaching this philosophy and this brand every time I say OPO. So,
yeah.
So tell us about some of the companies that are at OPO.
So we have Transactly. That is a fintech product in the real estate market that's making transactions more transparent in that sphere. They are founded by an Inc. 500 company that was number one on the Missouri's list of fastest growing companies in 2015 and 2016. And so they're well funded. They know what they're doing, and they went to market very rapidly. That's one thing I see with our companies. If they're going to do it, they do it rapidly. They're not sitting on the idea for 3 years. Like, they build it, they go. Tenant Loop was another one founded by a marketing firm that really helped other startups with their kind of all their marketing materials to do their investment round. They developed their own tenant landlord communication tool, and then they went from zero to acquisition in less than a year. So they're purchased by a Boston-based company, but they still work out of OPO. I have a Medicare cost containment program that's actually kind of an, I think, unsung part of the whole region. They were an $8 million investment round. They chose to be in St. Charles on Main Street. They chose us to be there. They resource with a lot of my service providers in the community. And then they'll do $2.5 billion in Medicare transactions this year with about a $30 million ROI. Yeah. So those are a few of them. And then I have, of course, the solo entrepreneur and the service provider. And a lot of what I've seen is my developers who are kind of working on freelancing for other people have a product they're working on, and they slowly, as they take it to market. So right now, I currently don't have anyone who's freelancing. They've all kind of gone into their own SaaS, and now what happens next? So it's that constant stream of pulling in new people.
Yeah. So as director of OPO, what kind of like common challenges do you see for startups and entrepreneurs that you probably see on a regular basis?
I think funding, honestly, is just hard. I mean, you add everything that happens in the middle, and then you add an X or suburb to that, and it's just difficult. And then a lot of bootstrapping is happening. And then I just see a lot of the solo entrepreneurs. I think it's very, very difficult to do it alone. And at OPO, we try and I call it a curation model. Like, I try and figure out who you are, what you need, and where I can provide those services. So we have a lot of collaboration happening between members that we do facilitate. There's no requirement of that; it's just part of the deal. But yeah, I think just honestly, there's the emotional loneliness, and as well as a professional loneliness, where you're like, how do I do everything myself? And yeah,
that's probably one of the great benefits of being in a space like that is that
yes.
you've got people around you.
Yes, yeah.
That provide energy and all those sorts of great things.
A cup of coffee, listening ear. I do a lot of marriage counseling on the side. Unique aspects.
So from that, tell us about Clustered. I know it's relatively in process, right?
Yes, I just launched last week.
Yeah. But tell us about who the market is. I'm assuming cities like St. Charles.
It's similar to St. Charles,
okay.
Absolutely. I'm again from the Southwest, so I'm kind of my stage 1 rollout targets cities in that area. Places like Flagstaff, Sedona, Park City, St. George, Twin Falls, Idaho. They are just a perfect. They're kind of by bigger cities considered sleeper communities, but they do have population densities of knowledge-based workers. They're well-educated environments. They're more affluent than the places around them, and they're poised to kind of make that shift to entrepreneurship. So it's really just people are being left to their own devices in those communities. And so why aren't we investing in them? We saw with OPO, we're a public-private partnership. We have $140,000 in the first 3 years of public money, and last year we ran a $12 million payroll out of our buildings. So that's a huge ROI on a government dollar. So I think you can, if you look at the numbers and you look at the population, it's kind of a no-brainer. It's just, getting the buy-in from those cities to see what they create. And then there's also the revitalization element where you have empty space. I'm not talking about like an empty mall, but you have a lot of main streets and cool places that still have a walkability factor that kind of creates that I want to go there. I want to stop at the coffee shop. We've seen around OPO a lot of kind of lunch and go, like grab and go type places. We have a sundry shop, a general store opening up, just to kind of service the businesses around it.
So when you think of like those cities of opportunity, what types of services would Clustered offer?
So we can do anything from an entry level, like a demographic, yes, you are a fit, and this makes sense for you. And those communities have distinctions, like there might be rural Wi-Fi issues, because sometimes in the West things are very spread out. And I'm not limited to the West, just go to what you know. So there's Wi-Fi connectivity issues. There's also just the density, again, like having these people around each other versus in their basements or their back bedroom working on stuff. And so I think what we can start with a demographic of, is this a fit for you? What services can we provide? And then what does that look like for you? So I actually did a tour of Helena last year, and Helena, Montana, and they actually had organic co-working already happening. And the economic development of the city had no idea. So at part of the tour, they found these places already arising through us coming. And so even if they're not necessarily managing a facility, they can provide services like marketing, staffing, events like a similar venture cafe for a very low investment. And then support these, it's a for-profit co-working space. So you're supporting a local business by bringing entrepreneurs together. So we can do anything from site selection to just creating that startup scene, like running demo days, anything in those genres, then to like even a year out, like coaching on your staffing model, on your management practices, the committee management around that, and then all of the public relations between the government and the private sector, and also just the marketing level, so letting people know you exist.
Yeah. So if Clustered is wildly successful, like what are you excited about in the next year, 2 years, 5 years?
Oh man, I have I would love to see, honestly, a Clustered in every economically viable place. I would love to see, I feel like the WeWork model, which is fantastic, but urban, downtown Denver is about as suburban as they're getting. And so I'd like to honestly replace, Randy Schilling is the founder of OPO Startups, and he always says, it used to be one of our buildings in our complex is the Oddfellows Fraternal Order, and we also have an Elks building. Those orders don't exist anymore, and they were very exclusionary. They were white, male, and affluent. Most people couldn't be involved in them. And then you had, country clubs and golf courses where business is done, again, exclusionary. And then you kind of saw a die down in those with the corporatization of the 20th century. But there's really a hole for that community development. So again, I would like, just like you'd see a Masonic Lodge, I would love to see a clustered element in every single town where you're bringing these people together in an inclusive manner. So it's open to anyone who has a valid idea and is willing to put the work in. That's what I'd really love to see.
So what kind of things can you do, like from a practical standpoint, to create an inclusive community for people?
Yeah, so I think and this is where inclusion by exclusion, I think the clustering idea is you have to have industry there around. So at OPO, we are tech and design focused. Tech is getting really broad anymore because it kind of covers everybody. But something that there's collaboration element between the members. If you have a title agency and a freelance developer and a SaaS product, there's no buy-in there besides, hey, how's it going? Which is great, but we want to be able, the community members to be able to work with each other. So I think, and then once you're on point, then you're really, I don't care what you look like, I don't care who you are, as long as you're focused on that. It tends to be a higher educational demographic, a little bit older, but there's no limit to male, female, color, or anything like that.
So you said OPO, or is it clustered that's tech and design?
OPO focuses on tech and design companies. Okay. Yeah.
So what about cluster?
A cluster can be, it really depends on that city. So I was actually, and part of how Cluster was born was I was informally, OPO has made a huge stride. So I was informally consulting with people who just literally calling me being like, hey, how did you do this? So actually Waterloo, Illinois came to me and was like, we're a bedroom community. We're in the St. Louis metropolitan area. We have a lot of kind of McMansions being built right now. So they want to do a co-working space around real estate. So the title agencies, the mortgage services. So I think you can have, it doesn't have to be tech and design. It just, you need to know your community, what their element is, and then create it there.
So let's shift gears and talk about like yourself as I would say an entrepreneur and a community builder.
Okay.
What advice or what from your experience can you give to people that may be in a similar place or have maybe heading in a similar direction as you?
Just get involved. Be part of a community, and trust the process, but be open to, I always say when you join OPO, it's like a gym membership. You get what you put into it. And if you never show up, you never attend venture cafes, you never network, you never meet other people, you're never going to grow. And so I actually got the job at OPO because my husband's company, my husband's Dustin McKissen, he's a writer on Inc. and some different publications. He was one of the first members of OPO, and they needed a director, and that's how I got there. So just meeting those people and being engaged, and I think that's kind of the first step.
So just being like in the right place around people is a good first step.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that person just in their basement working hard is great, and they might have traction and success, but if they do, it's because they're leveraging past relationships. If you don't have those relationships or you need to make new ones, you've got to be out in the community doing that.
That's solid.
Yeah, and I could say, like, from our experience, moving from not the basement, but like my bedroom to getting out and being in places like this, it's helped me grow immensely as
Absolutely.
an entrepreneur, business person, all those things, as a person in general. So
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So, Megan, how can people get in touch with you on social, Clustered, OPO, all of the above?
Yeah. So clusteredeconomicdevelopment.com is my website. You can find me on LinkedIn, Megan McKissen. And then I always say my husband is my business partner and a great guy to work with. And he is kind of a social media butterfly. So Dustin McKissen, you can follow him on Twitter, LinkedIn, or any of his columns on Inc. or VentureBeat.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, guys, for having me.
For more episodes, visit innovationcity.co. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. And if you're in St. Louis, visit us on a Thursday night. Details at vencafstl.org. And connect with us on social at We Are Slam or at Venture Cafe STL. Thanks for listening.
This is where it all begins, so say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where they die. This is where we come to win, we come to fly. This is where we make our dreams